gosh, I mean, I really swallow hard trying to imagine not taking a shot I know I can make. Bow hunting is about getting as close as you can possibly get. And that's the coolest part about it. Like every stalk I go on, I try to get close.
A lot of it's the drive of a hunter and not the technology in some ways, in my opinion.
This is Levi Morgan, and you're listening to the Stickbow Chronicles.
All right, everyone, welcome to another episode of the Stickbow Chronicles, brought to you by Black Widow Bows. And this is your co-host, Blake Hunter. And then on the other end of the phone today, we have Rob Patuto. What's going on, buddy?
What's up, man? Oh, not much. This is pretty crazy. You know, I've never done this on the phone before. But yeah.
We kind of fudged up and lost the original intro, so we're having to redo it while Rob's on the side of the mountain.
Well, yeah, we scrambled coming into the you were pretty busy. I was busy with work, and we had to get a lot of things together before I took off. And yeah, this is the worst thing that happens. We'll be all right.
We'll be fine. The episode, I feel like, is going to be a pretty good one.
Oh, epic, man. Levi Morgan on a Stickbow podcast. Really stoked to get him on here. You know, Aaron suggested Aaron and I were talking and said, hey, man, you know, let's rip the Band-Aid off the wound there a little bit and talk Stickbow versus modern compounds and let's go down that road. So I said, who'd be a good one for this? And he says, Levi Morgan. Like, let's do it. So, no, it was a fun conversation for sure.
Yeah, it was. And, you know, there was, I think, some really good points brought up by everyone.
No, I think mostly by me.
Mostly. Well, you're
already taking credit.
You're already trying to take credit for him picking up the Stickbow this year.
That's right, man. I feel like I won. Heck yeah. It was 3 against 1. I was just swinging.
We'll let the listeners be the judge of that, I guess. But
yeah, you know, talking about why Stickbow guys get frustrated with, you know, modern equipment and how modern equipment looks at Stickbows. I mean, it's really a healthy conversation, and I think that needs to be continue.
Yeah, I think it is too. I think it's really good conversation, and I just think hearing it from all sides is beneficial to everyone, because if, you know, at the end of the day, you know, we're all on the same team. So being able to see it from everybody's point of view is, I think, certainly beneficial to the sport. So.
Heck yeah. And, you know, it just continues the narrative that we're driving, you know, bridging the gap, because we are Stickbow guys. You know, that's what I do. That's what this podcast is about. But heck, you know, here I am hunting today, and, you know, run into 5-6 different people, and me and my buddy are the only ones carrying a Stickbow. So yeah, we're kind of all in this together, and we need to come to some consensus at times, for sure.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad Aaron got us hooked up with him, and, you know, hopefully we can circle back with him after this year. I know he's saying he wanted to try and kill something with a Stickbow, so that'll be a lot of fun to hopefully circle back with him and kind of get his thoughts after that.
Well, yeah, how cool would it be to have him in our I Hunt Close Drag Kill 2020?
Yeah, no kidding.
That'd be pretty cool. I would have to call victory again. I'm just taking wins as I get them.
Just stick another tally mark up on the board.
Hell yeah.
Oh, that's funny. All right, guys. Well, that's pretty much it. This one's gonna be a really good one. It's a little bit long, but you know, I think it was a great conversation, and we had a little bit of trouble with the audio, so bear with us. There's a little bit of background noise in some of it, but I think we've finally got it figured out. We lost Rob for a few minutes at one point, But I think we got it pieced together where it's not too bad.
Yeah, I had to duck out and call some of my Stickbow buddies and get pointers. And came back in. That's what it was.
Oh,
no,
man.
Good stuff. Great episode. Another great Empty Quiver episode. Appreciate Aaron's help on it for sure.
Yeah, 100%. It was a lot of fun. Oh, and real quick, want to plug a new partnership that we've got going with Iron Will. You won't hear them so much in the sponsor list of sponsors at the beginning or end of the shows or anything like that, just because we don't want to clutter it up too bad. But we've got a Stickbow Chronicles specific link. You'll see that up on Instagram and swipe ups. We'll start sticking it in the show notes as well. And then, you'll see it here and there, and using that link, going through that link helps support the podcast. You click on the link. If you buy anything through that link, Iron Will knows it, and then that supports us in turn. So pretty excited about that.
That's shirts, hats, knives, broadheads, everything, right?
Yeah, whole 9 yards as far as I know. So you guys are into Iron Will or want to go check out their stuff, make sure to use our Stickbow Chronicles link, and that will support the show. And, like I said, couldn't be happier. Bill's been a good friend of mine for a long time. And, I know Rob's been pretty thrilled with the products he's used so far, and it just seemed like a good fit. Bill's a great dude.
Absolutely. And where do they find that link?
The link, you'll either see it on Instagram in the swipe up. I'll do swipe up stories every once in a while through Instagram, or you can find it in the show notes. And then as well, you can go to the stickbowchronicles.com, go to the partners tab on the website and click the Iron Will logo. And that is the same link, just takes you to Iron Will's website through the Stickbow Chronicles specific link. So
right on. Cool. I'm going to go stoke the fire up in the wall tent. It's going to snow tonight, and it's going to be crappy tomorrow, but I'll be thinking of all of you while I'm in my wall tent.
Yeah, nose to toes. Remember that.
That's how I roll, bro. It's a one-man wall tent.
Oh, that's funny. All right, well, we'll get out of here. We want to thank the sponsors real quick. We got Selway Archery, The Footed Shaft, Kifaru International, and, of course, Black Widow Bows.
All right, man.
We'll see you.
Roger out.
All right. Hey, what's going on, guys?
Not much. How's it going?
What's up?
So, Levi Morgan, how you doing, man?
Doing good. Just been at a baseball tournament all the little guy and at home relaxing right now.
You got a little leaguer? Or?
Yeah, he just started AAU travel ball. So he's 7, but he tried out. They wanted him to try out for the 9 and up travel team because they thought he could make it, and he ended up making the team. So now I spend all my weekends chasing him around the state, watching him play baseball at 7 years old. So
how late does that season go?
All the way through the end of October. So I'm not going to make it to a couple of those baseball tournaments. So.
Conflicting with the whitetail schedule a little bit?
A little bit, yeah. And the elk and the mule deer and pretty much everything else in September. So,
yeah, you played baseball back in high school. I was doing a little digging around before we started this. You had, a full ride coming out of high school, right?
Yeah, I had a full ride in baseball and basketball. Baseball was my life. Like from the time I was Landon's age all the way through high school, I loved it. And just my shoulder would have never held up, and I knew it. And I was a pitcher, so after I'd pitch, I couldn't even drink a glass of water, and it was just terrible. It still gives me trouble, but I wanted to start shooting, and I knew I didn't have a career in baseball after college, so it would have just been to go to school really, and I didn't want to go to college, so just wasn't what I chose to do. So my mom cried for a couple weeks, and I started shooting my bow.
So you went pro right after high school, right?
Yeah, I just went straight in and got my butt kicked for an entire year and then figured it out. So
it sounds like you figured it out. How many shooter of the years have you won in a row, or had you won in a row?
I won 12 in a row up until last year. I got beat last year. So.
Now, come on now. There's more to the story than that.
Yeah, but I don't like to go down that road. He's been there so many times, and you know, it was a crappy year. I'll put it that way. I mean, the organization's really not that I would have won. Maybe I would have. Maybe I wouldn't have. But they scheduled events on top of each other, and I chose to go to. You know, I just chose to do the right thing by my standards and what I felt was right, and went to the one and pretty much gave Shooter of the Year up. The chance of me winning it up by doing that. So long story short.
Well, Aaron and I were talking the other day. You know, Aaron is I think he's a 4-year expert now. I think he's graduated from a 3-year expert to a 4-year expert. And trad and you know, we were shooting the shit a little bit about just the attitudes, because I actually, you know, I'm 30 something years shooting and I've experienced it some. So we were shooting the breeze about it, and I said, man, that might be a fun podcast to you know, rip the band-aids off some wounds and talk about some of the not so pretty sides of traditional archery and compounds. You know, it goes both ways. So I said, hey, what about doing a podcast? He said, yeah. And I said, well, who can we get on here? What compound guy can we get on here? And Levi, your name came out like before I was even done. I don't know what that's all about. It's like, let's get.
Sorry, Levi. my bad.
Yeah, it's all good, man. It's all good. No, I think that's, you know, me and Aaron have just had a lot of conversations about it. You know, it's been, you know, lately it hasn't been that bad, maybe because of Aaron too, you know, because we've addressed it a couple times, not in depth or in detail, but for a while I was getting hated on pretty hard by some traditional guys, and but not so much lately. So maybe Aaron's making I wouldn't tell him that.
I'm sure making a difference. I don't know if it's a good one, but I'm definitely making some type of difference.
No doubt.
Oh, I will attest. I've been around. I've been on this boat a long time. He rocked it. He was rocking the boat.
Oh yeah.
You know, I've been doing this podcast since 2018, and I don't stay within the confines very often, because everybody that I hunt with, pretty much, except for Mike, sorry Mike, and shoots a compound, and so it's not really a big deal in my world. So in this podcast, we've always kind of tried to bridge the gap. You know, MR James, you know, we've had you know, Brian Barney was on last week. You know, we're bow hunters. So yeah, I appreciate you coming on and you know, helping us bridge that gap and maybe talk about how things could be different, how they've gotten better, because I do think they've gotten better to some extent.
I have
for sure. No.
I've got a question for you, Levi. How many times have you went after traditional archers without being provoked?
I think 0, but I have went after them a little bit after I have been provoked. You know, I'm not.
Well, that should tell everybody right there that's listening that kind of where my standpoint was with Levi watching it all go down was like, don't poke the bear. Like, he doesn't go after you guys, so don't hop on his page and then cry and call him a bully when he defends himself. Like, that's kind of where I was at, because, of course, I know you personally really well, and I mean, you're genuinely a good guy. And I'm like, everything I ever watched, I'm like, oh, don't provoke it, don't do it. And then next thing you know, you're making fun of some dude or going after him. But it was never, you never, you know, initiated it.
Right, and I probably shouldn't have done that. However,
I enjoyed it.
Like, yeah, I got a little bit of I just hate. It's just so hard for me to just smile and swipe and just keep going through it, you know. My deal was every time I would start getting these comments like it's unethical to shoot a deer at 80 yards or 100 yards or blah, blah, blah. I would argue with somebody for like 30 minutes, and then I'd find out they shoot a longbow. And I was like, that was my hiccup. Like, if you want to shoot a longbow, my deal is that's great, because I mean, whatever you want to do, I don't care if you want to hunt with a slingshot or a blowgun or whatever. I mean, go for it. But it's when they were trying to talk to me about how a deer could move at 100 yards before the arrow got there, and I started doing the math on how fast their longbow was compared to how fast my compound was, and it was like the same as them shooting a deer at 25 yards. You know how much a deer could move, and so that was like one of the arguments. But that was like, I forget when there was one post I ended up having to shut commenting off on it because it was just on there, and it was insane. That was a couple years ago, but I don't know. There was a lot of those arguments back then, and I hadn't had any in a while. So I hope this don't spark any of those arguments.
Well, that's
I'm busy arguing politics nowadays.
Yeah, that's how I started shooting a stick bow. As I broke down the math, I did a podcast on relative effective shooting distance of speed to speed, and just was like, hey, 86 yards at this speed is equivalent to 27 yards at this speed. And by no means I'm not talking accuracy or whatever else, and meaning compound is more ethical or vice versa. But my issue was I would be shooting a Reinhardt 18-1 at 80 to 120 yards, and somebody, a stickbow guy, would come down and tell me how unethical I was. This isn't all stickbow guys, but he was missing the bail at 20 and 30, and I'm like, well, I haven't missed this 18-1. How am I the one that's unethical? And so that's what got me kind of riled up. Was like, I never tried to provoke it. It just kind of came at me. And I'm, again, the 4-year expert. I mean, Rob, you're the 30-year expert. What are you thinking about all this?
Well, I got some notes written down. I do, just like the Cody Greenwood. I feel like it's me against the world here, but I got a few arguments I'd like to make. I'm not going to pretend that I speak for all of traditional archery, because I don't, but I do think that there's a lot of people out there that kind of, would fall in step with the way that I kind of view things. And I do look at the long distance shooting. I look at it from a different angle, and it's probably, I will say that my opinion is crafted because of the state I live in. So here in Idaho, it's about game management, where, it might be in other states, it's about killing animals. I mean, so you got to increase harvest in other states. In Idaho, I look at it and like, man, if shooting 80 and 100 yards is increasing the harvest rates, then bow hunting is going to start to take a hit. I just did a podcast with the chief wildlife big game guy for Idaho, and he said on the podcast, he says, archers, bow hunters, their success rate is higher than rifles. So, I mean, that starts to raise eyebrows. So that's where I kind of, it causes me pause at that long range shooting.
That's not what's on the Idaho website.
Oh, I'm not sure what's on the Idaho website, but I promise you next week, you're going to hear the chief big game biologist, or what is he, the bureau chief? I forget. He's a top wildlife guy and has been here for 20 years. And I've actually heard
I'm not
that
arguing
before.
with that. I'm just telling you what it says on the website. The rifle's higher. Now,
I wonder if that's a statewide statistic, but anyway, regardless, that's where I pause and go, like, you know what? I find that concerning, because I don't want to lose, my month of September of elk hunting, because, technology has made 80 and 100 yards and plus acceptable. What say you?
So
Levi?
you're saying, well, you're saying that because archers or bow hunters are shooting animals out to 80, 100 yards, that the harvest rates are up? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I'm not saying that is the reason. I'm just saying if that is part of the reason, then
right.
I see that as detrimental to what I like or what I look forward to.
Right. Well, I mean, I feel like there's a very select few people that are ever going to put the time in to be good enough to consistently harvest animals at 80 to 100 and plus yards. So I don't know that there's enough people that are going to be that effective at that range to really put a dent in, like, I guess, wildlife numbers during archery season or anything like that. I'm not sure if that's where you were going with that or not, but.
Well, yeah, it is.
No, I think there's going to be a lot of littering and arrows that are going to be scattered across the canyons and the wilderness because of people trying to shoot that far that probably shouldn't be.
Yeah. Yeah, and that goes the same with long-range rifle shooting. I mean, it's the same problem, long-range rifle shooting, and to me, and because guys see you do it and others, and so they think it's doable when you're the exception. I'm assuming you're like the Aaron of compound, right? You're not like the average shooter, as Aaron isn't the average. I hope he can't hear this. The average stickbow guy.
Levi, I say go down as the greatest tournament archer in history.
Some would probably say that. You'll never hear me say that, but it's I don't know, touchy thing. But that was. I'm on one side of it for sure, where I feel like you should become the best you could possibly be with any weapon you pick up, whether it's a rifle, a bow, a slingshot, whatever. And if I know I can kill an animal at 140, then I'm going to send it. I'm not going to let somebody tell me that, no, that's too far. If I know I can kill it, I'm probably going to let it go.
Well, I want to drive a point home here. So what would you say your average group is at 80 yards with broadheads?
On a, just a good day, like no wind, probably 5 to 5 inches, 5-6 inches.
Okay. And that's about what I figured, but I can think of, and this is a problem with social media, I can think of 20 or 30 dudes right now on social media who post groups like that all the time, that all of us know damn good and well that that's not the norm. You know what I mean? So I think social media gives this perception of all these people are, aces in the hole, and everybody out here can shoot 80, 100 yards. So I think that's kind of an important point to drive home, is the fact that I think a lot of people get this idea from the internet that every guy who picks up a wheelbow is capable of shooting groups like that and killing stuff at 80 and 100 yards because they see it on the internet.
I got to say, on average, and you guys can both chime in, and I'm not trying to pump my own tires up here. I would say on the average person that grabs their compound the standard 2 to 3 weeks before season that is going out hunting, I outshoot them at the local range with my stickbow.
Right.
So, and I talk to those guys, they've known me, they'll ask, and they're like, hey, 40 yards and in that's it for me. I'm not comfortable. And so I try not to get in these arguments, because I look at it as a skill. And so when I say that, meaning everybody's got a different skill. I can't dunk, right? So should I tell Jordan not to? Because he got gifted with mad hops, right? I can't do it, but he worked at it and, genetically gifted from birth. Well, some people get picked last at Foursquare. They probably shouldn't be shooting at 80 yards, right? I mean, they're not, they're good at other stuff. Well, if you take someone that can shoot 5 or 6 inch groups, well, when you were in Alberta, at that point, before you came, Lander, I was the best compound shooter Lander had ever seen. And Lander had so much enjoyment to come tell me how much better you were than I was, because that's how Lander is. And he was like, his groups are half your size at 80, Aaron. And I'm like, well, he's the best in the world, Lander. That's still good, right? He was literally enamored. He's like, his groups were like this at 80 yards, and he was holding a circle with both hands. I'm like, yeah, I know. I told you he could shoot. Well, you can't blueprint you over everyone, or just say, okay, everyone's like Levi. And you can't say, with guys that suck, that everybody's like these dudes that suck. I mean, everybody's kind of in a different category, and it's up to them to choose what they're comfortable with shooting. And stickbow, compound rifle guys, everybody's going to have wing nuts in the group that are going to fling arrows at shit they probably shouldn't, and there's not much you can do about that.
Right. Yeah, and honestly, growing up, bow hunting was a 50-yard and in sport for me. I mean, growing up, because I'm an East Coast whitetail guy, never even had a pin over 50 yards until I was probably in my early 20s when I started hunting out west. And I went out with Tim Gillingham, and we were practicing. It was my first antelope hunt. We were out just shooting, and he throws the target out there at 80 yards, and I'm like, "What are you doing? I don't even have a pin for that." And he laughed, like literally laughed at me, like, "What are you planning on doing out here with 50 yards and under, and spot and stalk?" I ended up killing one first day just to prove my point, but to him. But I did realize that, man, watching him shoot, and he ended up killing one that week like 86 yards and just center punched it. And it was just like really eye-opening to me at what the equipment could do if you put the time in. And I don't know if you guys know who Tim is, but he's like psycho obsessed with shooting and like learning he knows his equipment better than anybody in the world. And
all traditional archers love Tim.
Oh,
I
I'm
don't know
sure.
if you know that or not. Yeah.
I'm sure, but the dude.
All right, I gotta jump in. I'm like the black sheep here. I gotta jump in.
Okay.
First off, I hope this audio is coming out. I dropped out for like 3 minutes. I thought we were done, and I all of a sudden kicked back on. So I hope this isn't all for naught. I'm gonna go back
to the record button when you went out.
Did you?
Yep.
Freaking genius. That's why you're here. So I go back to the success rate. So like the archery seasons, they're supposed to be not about game management, but about time of field and, the impact, the low impact of on the game. So as we continue to climb, because we will in success rates, do you think it's fair, or can you blame?
I don't know about that. Rob.
Hey, time out. I'm not done. I'll mute you. I will mute you.
I'll pull up and show you that you're wrong. Success rates have not gone up from technology, but go ahead.
So, can you blame guys that stay 30 and in, mostly due to their equipment, or 40 and in, for going like, hey, let's look at this. Let's look at this as an equipment thing. Can you see where people are coming from there? I'm not talking to you, Aaron.
I do see where they're coming from. It's gosh, I mean, I really swallow hard trying to imagine not taking a shot I know I can make.
Absolutely.
I spent my whole life perfecting a craft, and I'm not, I just refuse to have somebody tell me that, no, bow hunting is not made for, that kind of shot. So, I mean, that's where I have trouble with. But I totally understand where they're coming from, because I feel it with crossbows. So, like, I feel like this, I start to feel those feelings when I see somebody shooting a Raven or a Mission, because those sub ones, because my 7-year-old can shoot 3-inch groups at 70 yards with it. It takes no practice, no skill level, no anything. But it's completely different than a bow. But I still can't hate on them, because then I'm just doing the same thing that gets on my nerves,
Okay, you can't hate on them, but what happens when they start impacting your season? You got to draw the line, right?
Can I chime in or get
Yes,
muted?
go ahead, Aaron.
Rob, isn't that up to the state to? So here's my point when I talk about trad guys picking on compound guys and vice versa. And I mean, you're probably aware of how they got voted in anyway, crossbows. And in my statement earlier about technology did not include crossbows. I was talking about vertical bows. Isn't it up to the state to shit can those, Rob? Like, it's not Levi's fault.
No, it is. But I will say, who goes to the state to fight for these things? You got a handful of, plumbers and construction workers and everybody in their spare time who is, the state bow hunting organization. And you have big money in these manufacturers coming in and, courting the department. And so that's who you're up against. So yeah, it is our job to help support the game managers, but they're catching it from big money. And that's the problem, or that is a problem.
But yeah, that's kind of where I was getting at.
Right. But I mean, I feel like, where do you draw the line? I mean, do we go all the way back to build your own arrows and sharpen your flint broadheads and that, or do you get to use, store-bought arrows and, somebody else makes your broadheads and somebody else makes your bow, and then, or do we have field tests, which I always thought was a good idea, where you got to be able to shoot well enough at 30 yards to go bow hunting, to pass a test. Because I'm more concerned with how many animals are running around with arrows sticking out of their, backs and necks and heads, and, that run off and die. Nobody ever gets because people, don't take the time to learn how to shoot.
Levi, I brought this up once, and I got a lot of hate mail because, to me, with the compound bow, I said 50 and in, they should be able to hit consistently an 8-inch circle at 50, be able to walk out in the woods, or 40, roughly somewhere in there. And then with a stick bow from 30 and in, you should be able to hit that same circle 4 out of 5 times. Yeah, that did not go over well, but I was like, well, that'll limit numbers, and that'll also make people put the effort in, to do it. And my I guess my thing is I just shot an antelope at 40. I got a few comments about that was too far to shoot with a stick bow, but I mean, to who, right? Does that mean the guy that can't hit the bale at 20 shouldn't be going hunting at all because he didn't hit the bale at 20, and I could shoot pie plates all day at 40. So you'd need a test to really, get, the right people in the woods that have earned it, I guess.
Right.
Well, and I'm just explaining the other side of it. I like I said, I hunt with almost all my buddies shoot compounds. So I mean, I kind of do have a dog in the fight, but at the same time, I see the other side. I'm passionate about game management, especially in my state, and I think Idaho has the most restrictive archery regulations in the country. I think. So that's where I'm coming from. And, to the wounding thing, my buddy owns an archery shop, and you can't believe, and he's a Matthews dealer. It's mainly compounds, but I mean, you'd be shocked. His all of August is spent tuning bows. Right up till September 1st, people are walking in the door with bows. Hey, can you build me some arrows? Hey, I need a new rest? I mean, it's insane. And that's one thing I'll say for stickbow guys is generally they're shooting year round.
Right. Yeah, I mean, just in general, but I think it's the false assumption that people think that wheel bows are just shoot themselves, and they're just easy and they can go in and shoot a week before season and be fine, when that's not the case. I mean, like Aaron said, I know a lot of guys that have no business going hunting with a compound bow. I mean, It's honest to God a miracle if they kill anything. And I mean, I'm in camp with them every year, every camp. There's a few guys that really, I mean, we're out shooting in the yard and they're struggling to hit the block target at 30 and 40 yards. I mean, it's like, there's no way they spend any time doing it, but I think it's because they're like, oh, I just put the pin in the middle and pull the trigger and good enough, and that's just not the case. I mean, but
Levi, what would you say percentage-wise? Obviously not in your crowd because that skews it, but your crowd and everyone else, how many people would you say archers, compound bows, can hit a pie plate at 80 yards? What percentage?
Like consistently?
Yeah, consistently.
I would say probably 10%. Or
you
less.
Gave it more than, or less. Yeah, you gave it a little more than I did. Yeah. So it's not very high. And
no.
Rob, how many would you say stickbow guys can hit a paper plate on a bet? Not the testicle bet, but on a bet at 40.
Oh, at 40? It'd probably be similar, I'd have to say.
5 to 10%, I would say.
Yeah.
Okay, so the 5%, 5 to 10% that can do it with a compound, and the 5 or 10% that can do it with a stick bow, should they get harassed by the guys that can't?
No, but I guess I'm just. I look at. This is why I edit. I don't want to sound like an idiot.
Come on, spit it out.
I don't look at it as a
question.
Hey, I'm recording now. None of this is getting edited out, buddy.
I don't look at it. I don't look at it as a skill thing. I look at it as how the season was intended. And I know you can't, like, don't get me wrong, you can't legislate or make rules over, you can only shoot this far. But I'm just like giving credence to why the discussion is there. I don't lend any credibility to the 3%, 4% meatheads that attack people, maybe like you, Levi. But just having the conversation, I think, is good. And I think a lot of people look at it as, hey, this is about a days in the field, and we're not supposed to be impacting, impacting the resource like we are, and that's where I'm coming from. So it's not a skill thing.
Well,
for me,
it is a skill thing for some of what we talked about, because some of it's the contention between compound and stickbow guys, and in the infighting, with that. And then it's also, if it is impacting, it's not in Colorado, but if it is impacting different states, it is a skill thing. And if it's a skill thing, there's got to be a way. You're not going to be able to go out in the woods and police up Levi and give him a ticket because he shot some at 80 yards. A proficiency test would solve those problems, because it would limit a lot of people in the woods.
Being in the woods. I see where you're going with that.
And I'm not saying I want to take anybody's right to be in the woods, but I want to say get your ass out on the range and practice if you're going to try to take something's life.
Right. Yeah, and go ahead, Levi.
No, I was just agreeing. I mean, that, and at the same time, that would really hurt. I think too. It would help and hurt at the same time. It's a tough thing to say that this is the answer, because that would cut hunting numbers in half or more if there was any kind of challenge to this proficiency test. Because not only these people that can
or
shoot
it might make them
their
go
backyard,
up because they need to get lessons.
Exactly, because these people really that can maybe shoot those groups in the backyard, they're the ones that really suck under pressure.
And that's where I was going to go.
When you go say this is for all the marbles. You don't get to hunt this year if you don't shoot this group. Nobody's going to shoot that group that don't shoot under pressure. So and when you cut those numbers down like that, then I think you really hurt hunting in general. You hurt license sales, you hurt all the things, people buying equipment, the things that drive hunting, on the backside. So it's a really hard thing to say this is the answer, in my opinion. So,
it's a very slippery slope. There's no doubt about that. And there's a lot of different ways that could impact different things.
I agree. I think that kind of like a driver's test, it doesn't hurt car sales when they had a driver's test. It just made people practice.
That's true.
And what I was getting,
that's true.
And believe me, I've gotten into some heated conversations, mostly guys that suck, about this. You're not taking that away from me. I'm like, man, I'm just bringing up options. I'm not taking away your birthday here. Don't be mad at me. What I'm saying is you could retest up to 3 times, just like a driver's license. Minimal cost.
Yep. That
minimal cost would go to the DOW, and it would help coaching. It would help proficiency. And if you've got crappy equipment, it made people, I understand, save up though, maybe get better equipment. If they have that drive to hunt, that they would put forth the effort. And I'm kind of looking at it totally different, because I'm always trying to get guys to stop hitting the easy button and put some effort in. And I get the choking thing, but if you can test 3 to 5 times, if you haven't passed it by then, you did get picked last at Foursquare. I mean, you should be able to you can retest, right? I mean, eventually you'll get it.
For sure. And on your side of the argument, when you're shooting an animal, your heart rate and you're under pressure, just the same kind of thing. So it'd probably be good for some people to feel that before they go out in the woods too.
And Rob, probably on your side defense, when I took the bow hunter safety in Colorado, you got to write down when you take it, what's your effective shooting distance? And I put 60 yards down. And at that time, that was what I put. Well, I'll be damned, they put a steel elk out there with the lungs taken out of it, and everybody had to shoot through it. Now, it wasn't a pass-fail thing, but there's a couple guys that, I don't know if they thought they were copying their buddy, but they wrote down 80, and that arrow was dropping 20, 30 feet short of the elk. Like, it was just skipping off the dirt. And I was like, and, you know, they got it from somewhere that was the distance. You know, there was no boots on the ground for them to pick that number, but they wrote that down. But it was an eye-opener. It was an eye-opener for me because I tell you, I about nicked the steel when I shot, and I was choking a little. I was like, oh, wait a minute. I thought we were going to shoot a paper plate. You got a steel elk down there. Jesus, that's not cool. But it was very good and enlightening for people to, you know, to see that. I get, you know what I mean, to really think about it, because there was a lot of steel getting hit when we shot that. But, I mean, Rob, on your side of it, I guess, I mean, Blake, I don't know how long you've been shooting exactly, but would you say the increase in traditional archers has been good, bad, and different? It seems like compound shooters and traditional archers are getting along better now to a certain degree, and it's at least showing guys like, you know, me and Blake and Rob and my buddy Jake and other people that it can be done, that it's not impossible if you put the work in. You can take animals, you know, with the stick bow, and some people might enjoy it more. Some people can't tune they don't like all the gadgets on a compound. It seems like a united front would be better more than people bitching at each other.
Yeah, 100%. And I think a lot of the guys who are coming in to traditional archery that are maybe accomplished compound shooters and understand tuning and understand arrow flight and understand things like that. I think it's a great thing because just having that background and that knowledge, I think the proficiency level of traditional archers with this new crowd coming in is going up with the information that's out there, the coaching that's out there, and all of those things. So I think it's been super positive. And of course, a lot of us new guys can relate back to when we were shooting a compound. And the thing about it is no matter what weapon I've got in my hands, whether that's a compound, a trad bow, a rifle, no matter what it is, I'm going to try and be as proficient with that weapon as I can be. And so if I've got a compound in my hands, I don't have some kind of moral thing that's going to say, well, just because I can shoot 60, 70 yards, I'm not going to hold myself to 30. I'm going to shoot the shots that I can take. Like Levi was saying earlier, if I feel confident in the shot, I'm going to take it. So that's.
Yeah, and I mean, I totally get it. Like, I totally get traditional, the whole thing behind it. Like, bow hunting is about getting as close as you can possibly get, and that's the coolest part about it. Like, every stalk I go on, I try to get close. Like, I set myself up whitetail hunting, you know, to shoot them at 25 yards because that's what I want, you know. But the reason I started, you know, I hated seeing that these freaking giant animals walk off. You know, I'm like, gosh dang it, if I could just shoot 80 yards, I could kill everything that come by me, you know. So I learned how to do it. You know, I'm like, I hate losing. I hate it so much. I hate watching them walk off. So I'm going to learn how to shoot that far. So the goal is always to get as close as possible. But the ones that used to get away just don't get away anymore. That's the difference.
Well, you probably just answered the question or the topic I was going to throw out next was, you know, what about the people that say you're not sharpening or you don't have sharp enough hunting skills, right? If you got to take an 80 or 90 yard shot, it's because you haven't worked hard enough at your woodsmanship. So kind of.
Well, I would say, you know, most of the biggest animals I've killed, I've shot at sub 30 yards. You know, I shoot a lot. I shot 185-inch mule deer 2 years ago at 10 yards on a spot and stall. if it's possible, I'll get as close as I can get. A lot of times, yeah, things get squirrely and I'm 50 yards from him. I'm not taking another step, you know, where like if I was shooting traditional, I would probably have to push the issue and maybe blow him out, you know. But if I'm pushing in on a, you know, 180-inch deer and I'm get within 80 yards and he starts to catch on, I'm going to just kill it, because I'm not going to, you know, take a chance on blowing him out and never seeing him again. And that's just my personal way of hunting. You know, it wasn't always that way. I used to have to get to 40 yards because that's the way I was brought up hunting. Is that's just, you know, bow hunting's 40 yards and in or 50 yards and in. But over years of doing it, I just watched a lot of animals run off, you know. So, and that's probably why I haven't picked up a trad bow yet.
Rob, though, Rob, that was all the hate mail I got when I went to picking up a stickbow was, you're just a crappy woodsman and you suck and you'd never kill anything if you picked up a recurve. We've seen how that turned out, and knowing Levi like I do, I think people would be eating a big shit sandwich if Levi picked up a recurve in a very short period of time, because Levi doesn't like to lose. He would pick it up, he'd put the time into it, and I have no doubt would be extremely successful at it. Which I'm only bringing that up because that is exactly what happened, Rob, what you just said, Rob. I had hundreds of emails from traditional archers about basically I just suck in the woods and I'd never kill anything unless, you know, if I'd had a stickbow in my hand. And that's what made me swap over.
Maybe we all did that just to trick you into promoting traditional archery. You ever think you got played, bro?
No, because all those same people just made up other shit when I started being successful.
You know,
we go to the best places. If I went where you went, Aaron, I'd kill big stuff too.
Yeah.
I bet that one gets beat to death.
Dude, that's what was that guy's name? I just talked to him. Well, Levi, you know how much I don't hunt that much. I mean, Alberta, you got to have a guide, but you're not guided. There's just one there to make it legal.
It's just a buddy.
Yeah, and then I saw a meme the other day where it said Aaron Snyder's 2020 season, and it said, you know, private land guided, and I'm like, man, there's a lot of these different hunts I'm going on that are public land, you know, but it's what people want to see, you know, it's just what they want to, you know, perceive and to make themselves feel better, which I don't care. I mean, you know what you have to go through in Alberta to kill something. It's not a gimme.
You might have shot a wolverine, bro, but it was a guided hunt. Let's be real.
Yeah, I know. And that guy had the squeakiest freaking Koflex boots known to man. I looked back. You're going to have to edit this. I said, dude, it sounds like there's rats having an orgy in your boots. Take those things off, man, because they were squeaking so bad.
How the hell do you know what that sounds like?
I guess.
He's heard
the private land thing always gets me because, and Rob and I talked about this the other day, but if you were giving me 7 days to get it done and I had two options and I had to pick from a private land Texas whitetail, 5.5 years or older, hunting over bait, hunting however you want to hunt with a bow, or you're giving me 7 days to go backpack into some pristine wilderness area on public land in Colorado to spot and stalk mule deer, which one would I pick? Like, which one do I feel like I have more chance of having opportunities? Well, I mean, which one would I pick to have more of a chance of filling that tag in 7 days? And I would pick that Colorado backpack mule deer hunt 100 times over. And I'm sure I'll get hate over that because I've killed one mule deer in Colorado on a backpack hunt, but that's just, I feel like I may not necessarily kill one, but I'm going to have opportunities. And in Texas on private land hunting whitetails, I'm probably not going to have an opportunity inside 7 days. It takes me 30 or 40 sits every year to get one or two opportunities. So that discussion always cracks me up.
Levi, where were you last year? You ended up shooting a special needs buck at one point, like one of your last days of the hunt, it was an older deer, but you were somewhere last year, Iowa maybe, and you got your ass handed to you.
Oh, yeah. The tag, it's supposed to be like the coveted tag of bow hunting. Unit 5 in southeast Iowa on a 700-acre private farm all to myself that, unbeknownst to me, had been wiped out by EHD and there was nothing left. So, yeah, I spent 10 days sitting daylight till dark in like 0-degree weather and ended up shooting a deer I wouldn't even shoot at home. So, yeah.
That's funny. That's funny.
But, to me is, none of us grew up hunting 5-star places. That's just come with years of networking and just being, in the positions that we're in the hunting world. I cut my teeth on public land like everybody else. I killed some of my biggest animals on public land. I didn't learn how to hunt on a private ranch, but if you invite me to go to a great spot to do something I love to do and have a great chance of killing a huge animal and it's fair chase, I'm probably going to come, because I feel like that'd be a dumb move to say, no, I want to make it hard on myself, and just go shoot tiny stuff for the rest of my life, because that's just, and if maybe some people love doing that, that's fine. And I still like shooting public land stuff. Like Kansas public ground is as good as any private ground in Kansas. Walk-in hunting in Kansas, well, it is private ground that they lease to the state for hunting, is all it is. And it is as good or better than any private ground you'll find in Kansas. I've got some giants in there on that wall to prove it. I mean, first sit on public ground, 162, mid 60s. I mean, it's just like hunting private, but people, and that cracks me up. People are like, oh, public land buck, and it's a 100-inch whitetail, but they think that is a bigger accomplishment than shooting a 190 on a private ground, when in all reality, it's comparing apples to apples in a lot of these states, because public ground is just as good as private in a lot of places you go in the Midwest for whitetail, and elk for that matter. If you do your research, or Midwestern stuff, if you do your research, you can find some killer public ground, for elk. Like one of the places I go in New Mexico is kind of mixed with private and public, and it is unbelievable on the public ground there. I mean, Unit 15 and all that stuff is all public. Now, to get the tag's a different story, but
I would say when you mentioned shooting a little, making it hard on myself to shoot little bucks, I think you touched on something there, but you didn't mean to. There are people who are just about the method, right? And I do think sometimes they might be the most opinionated. They want to do it with a head they napped and a self bow, and they're stoked, and it's cool, right? It's cool. That's what they want to do. I do believe that that's where some of it is bred from. It's like, well, I did this. It's way harder than what you did. And I'm not. Yeah, that's just an observation.
No, I think you're right, Rob.
Right.
I think you're right.
You are right.
I just did a Q&A today, and I had 3 people send messages. Hey, are you going to hunt public land for whitetails this year to prove people wrong? And I'm like, no, I'm not. Why would I? Like, I hunted public ground the last 2 decades. Like, I've worked hard to have better hunting opportunities. Now, I will say I'm always going to do public land elk, and I'll do, if, I can't say I'll ever do private, but if I can get a landowner tag, I'm going to get a landowner tag or whatever. I'm always going to do, when I can, high country mule deer hunts and crap like that. But this year I turned in my high country tag to focus on antelope and elk, and I'm going to hunt in Eastern Plains. I'm going with, Alex. I'm going with my buddy Alex. If I shoot a 190-inch deer, within 24 hours, I'm going to see screenshots of friends of people that don't like me that are like, oh, of course he shot that. He's on private land. Well, I mean, Levi, you've been out there. It's not a gimme. I mean, you're not going to, but it is what it is. But I worked hard to get to hunt some cool stuff. So I'm going to take an opportunity just like you guys would, or are, or whatever. Unless Jimmy John buys it from you.
Yeah, you better watch that. You better watch it.
No, I think that was a good point, Rob, that, you know, especially when it comes to everybody's got their own way of challenging themselves. For some people who even rifle hunt, it's they want to find the biggest, oldest, most ancient animal in the woods. That's what they're looking for. And some people want to challenge themselves by, like you said, with a self bow. With, you know, with a self bow with heads you napped yourself, a doe is like a Boone and Crockett whitetail to a guy that shoots a rifle or whatever. And there's just, when you start pushing the way you challenge yourself on everybody else, I think that's where the hang up is. And, you know, start pointing fingers back and forth. Everybody's got their own way that they like to hunt, and their own way that they like to challenge themselves. And I think that was a pretty good point.
I agree with that 100%. I always felt like, you know, the problem comes when people start putting their methods and their limitations on you, you know, whatever that is, you know. And that was my point, saying, you know, guys that want to hunt public ground and whatever, and shoot whatever gives them an opportunity, because sometimes you got to take what opportunity you're given, or you don't feel a tag. You know, it may not be a 160-inch deer, it may not be a 200-inch deer, whatever. But if you want to fill your tag, you take the first good opportunity you get, you know, which is the way I grew up hunting. And there's nothing wrong with that. But it's when those guys say, and it comes from both sides too, it's when those guys say, well, of course I could kill big deer if I went and hunted big private ranches too. And then you've got guys going, why in the world would you shoot that tiny animal? You know, he's only 3.5. And, you know, who cares? That's me. I'm like, yeah, I hate it when my neighbors do it, but other than that, I don't care if you want to shoot a 3.5-year-old, you know, whatever you want to do. But I just feel like everybody'd be a lot more happy if they would just go hunt the way they like to hunt and enjoy it for the reasons they want to enjoy it.
Let me shift gears here a little bit. I got a question, Levi. Is there any technology that's coming out here recently, you know, as it pertains to equipment, that you think has gone too far in you know, on a compound?
Man, that's a slippery slope, and
I love it.
I see what you're doing with that question. I see that, but it depends on who you're asking. You know,
I'm asking
you.
To
me, yes. To me personally, yes. I think. I mean, I'll just say it. I don't think crossbow hunting is like, it's not a true archery action. You know, you don't pull anything back. You don't. You know, that's the one thing I feel like has really changed bow hunting, and changed how you even go about it. You know, like you sit there with a tripod and shoot a crossbow 100 yards, you know, even the sights that range things have changed the game. Like that's like, you don't even got to do anything.
That was going to be my next question, is what do you think about the sites that do the ranging and put your pin up for you?
I don't trust it because it doesn't work.
I wouldn't either, but I'm just morally, what would you think about it? I wouldn't trust it either. I wouldn't use one just from a fear of equipment.
It is what it is. I mean, I don't know what I think about it, because honestly, I don't make the rules on it. I feel like it's you know, there's no possible way that I wouldn't trust it. Let's just put it that way. You know, so I haven't put enough thought into it to say, is it, you know, too far? Is that too far with bow hunting? But then you're like, well, our rangefinder's too far, you know, because that's what I'm saying. Nobody's going to agree on anything when it comes to that, because you'd have to go all the way back to everybody's got to build their own bows and arrows and, you know, plant tips, and then that's where we draw the line.
I think we do need to find common ground, though, because we need to, at some point, have an answer, because, you know, some states, it's different from one end of the country to the other. You know, like I said earlier, there's states that need to kill deer. You know, they're gonna like, air bow, you're gonna kill more deer? Hell yeah. You know, you get into the western states where you're managing time in the field and you know, versus success rates. So I think it's important, and that's kind of what I like about talking to you guys and having different equipment users on the podcast. Like we need to stick together because you and I might differ on a few things, but we're in this together.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I see that. I mean, I see where things could get out of hand. I feel like, where my hiccup is with a crossbow, and I'm trying to be very careful here because I don't want to do what's been done to me so many times and hate on somebody because they can shoot 100 yards or whatever. But it takes zero practice and zero skill set to do that with a crossbow. Like I said, my 7-year-old can go out there right now and he can outshoot me with my compound with his crossbow, because he sits on a tripod, puts the crosshairs on it and squeezes the trigger. It's just, it's like shooting a rifle. So to me, that's about as far as I'm going to be super pumped with archery hunting going, because it's creating, nobody has to go out and practice. Nobody has to work at it anymore. And it's not really drawing a bow back and shooting. Now, whenever it was for, if you had injuries or kids or you were physically impaired or certain, whatever, great. Because I don't want anybody to not be able to go out and enjoy hunting, right? But if it's because you don't feel like practicing, and that going bow hunting and grab a crossbow and shoot an animal at 100 yards, yeah, that gives me a little heartburn, but I don't know, what to even say about that because I don't know, that's just, all these questions are hard questions. And like, I'm not sure I have the answer to them. I have my own personal feelings and I don't even know if they're right. I don't even know if they're justified the way I feel about them. So.
Well, I think with the crossbow issue, and I was just leaning towards, accessories or whatever that you put on a compound. Right. But I do think with a crossbow, if people want to use them, they can use them in a general season because now you talk about, just what you're saying. The industry, the crossbow industry sold them as, hey, this is going to put more bow hunters in the field. It's going to they're going to buy them and then they're going to want to shoot a compound. Well, that was a big lie. And the success rates, I mean, Jiminy Christmas, now you're shooting 100 yards.
For whitetail, it was devastating in some of the whitetail states. Out west, it did make a shit of difference, but
yeah, you got to pack that thing around.
Freaking no joke, man, no joke.
So yeah, for sure. I mean, in my opinion, they should have their own season, like a muzzleloader does, or I mean, it's a different weapon. It's not picking a bow up, drawing it back. I shot an animal. I shot an animal with a crossbow, and I felt so dirty after I did that. Like, honest to God, because I didn't have to stand up. I didn't have to pull my bow back. I just kind of looked at Micah, who was my brother, rolling camera, and I was like, well, are you ready? I'm going to kill it now. I mean, it was like there was no worry in my mind. It was just a different – I came back. I told Samantha, I said, I will never do that again, unless I just have to and can't draw a bow back because I didn't like the way it felt. But a lot of guys might love that, but in my opinion, it shouldn't be in the same season as bow hunting. And that's just my opinion. Please, God, don't send me hate mail over that. You
ain't going to get hate mail for that on this podcast.
Not from you guys. I guess not. Yeah. Maybe crossbow hunters might not be listening to this podcast.
No, I doubt it.
Levi, what do you think? There's a few podcasts out there that have been really pushing this separate traditional archery, season. And to me, I kind of like to get all your guys' view on this. I don't feel at this point handicapped having a stickbow in my hand. I maybe after 40 or something, I'd pick a compound, but inside of 40, I think I'm probably more lethal with a stickbow than I was with a compound. And Levi, you can appreciate, I can draw that thing back and get an arrow off much quicker than you can. I have to think. So, to me, I would much rather have the full 30-day elk season competing against compound guys than if they said, oh, you get 2 weeks. Now, that's never going to happen because you're not enough stickbow guys, but you get 2 weeks with your stickbow, and then you got to go, hey, you got, the next 2 weeks are with a compound. I'm totally fine. I'd rather just go head to head with compound guys for the full month and then stick crossbow dudes in a totally different season, much, much shorter, just like gun season. Because it's not a whole lot different than a gun in a lot of ways. Obviously, you can't shoot as far, but what do you think about traditional archery seasons, compound season, that kind of thing?
Well, I mean, it wouldn't make no difference to me because I just fly out to Denver, Colorado in about January and work on shooting traditional for the next 6 months. So, I'm going to bow hunt. I can promise you that. So I'll figure it out, you know. But yeah, I don't know. Like you said, I don't see that ever happening. But hypothetically, there's a lot more compound shooters than stick bow shooters, and that would be a giant bomb of emotions coming out. That'd be a train wreck. But I mean, I wouldn't. I mean, whatever. You know, I'll play any game we got to play. You know, just like the known distance versus unknown and 3D. Whatever game I got to learn how to play, I'm gonna put the work in and learn it. But a lot of people wouldn't feel that way.
No, and I mean, I can see some guys, like, for example, if I was still shooting a compound and some coveted tag got opened up for stick bow only, my ass would be practicing to shoot a stick. So it would increase stick bow numbers. But one of the things that I've argued with these guys about it is like, hey, there's strength in numbers, and we don't have shit compared to compound shooters. Like, we don't have enough to get into this battle, and we may lose ground if we get into this all-out war of compound versus stick bow guys. Like, I don't think it's worth the fight,
Right.
Because we may lose, and we may lose. It could give us a black eye, you know, and proficiency things. Like, it could make compound guys start looking at stick bow guys way more and put it in a bad light somehow. And it's like, well, I mean, it might convert some people, but I just don't know if it's worth it. Because, I mean, I hunt public land all the time. I'm not having any issue, you know, taking animals with the stick bow, even on short hunts, if I've done my homework. Because some guys don't have the time, and I totally get that. I just don't know that it's a good idea to do stick bow only. And I'm only shooting a stick bow. I don't have any ambition to shoot a compound for an animal again. So I don't have a dog in the fight. I just don't know it'd be worthwhile to go to war, which it would end up being, in my opinion, to segregate like that. Separate.
Yeah, there's no question about it. It would be terrible for hunting, the conversations that would be started at that point. I mean, it would be, I mean, I can see it right now. I mean, that would be a nightmare for hunting, you know. I mean, I think you could get away with it if certain tags were like stick bow only maybe, but like seasons, I don't know. You know, I don't think that would ever fly. You know, I think you could get away with saying this tag is going to be a traditional tag, you know, because there's tags right now that I can't draw because I don't live in certain places or whatever. So I think people could probably get over that, but I don't think people are going to get over, we're taking the first 2 weeks of bow season away from you and it's traditional only now, you know.
Yeah, Rob, I'm curious what you think, but I would say kind of what Levi just said, the way to do it would be, in my opinion, if there's 80 tags in a unit or whatever, say it's a unit that they're under harvesting what they want to harvest, just add 10 stick bow specific tags to that unit. Don't change any season structure or anything like that. And I'm not sure, you know, Aaron brings up a good point that you start taking somebody's season away from them to give somebody else a season, and that's what starts the fighting.
Yeah. Well, because I tell you, I mean, it's not a pure, the traditional community has a lot of pure traditional guys that do it because they love to get close. They do it because that's what they like to do. It also has a lot of guys that suck so bad with the compound that they just shoot traditional because now they have an excuse to miss.
100%.
And so they would be benefiting from it. And that's the God's honest truth, because I've seen it happen a bunch of times. I've seen guys that couldn't hit the broadside of a barn with the compound go, I'm a traditional shooter now, you know, because nobody judges them for shooting, you know, a 3-foot group at 30 yards. You know?
Now you took an hour and 20 minutes to get right down to it.
No, I'm just saying that I have heartburn.
It's true,
saying,
though.
Oh, those guys get their own special season, because it's just like anything. It's not only these pure traditional guys. It's guys that if they were good enough with a compound, they'd be shooting a compound too. There's a lot of those guys that are shooting stick bows.
And I would say, to your point, I would say it's not more, to me, it's those guys, it's not about not being able to shoot. It's about sucking as a hunter, because I know some that have done that, and it's not that they couldn't shoot. They just sucked at hunting. So they could pick up a stick and then have a built-in excuse.
Right.
I won't say the one guy's name publicly.
Right. I've been in certain scenarios. I wish I'd have had a stick bow because I could have had an excuse because I sucked it up so bad. But
talking about the traditional only seasons, it was tried in Idaho. Man, we had a game commissioner, and I give him credit because it wasn't just archery; it was muzzle loading. Muzzleloaders started doing sabots, and I know a guy that killed a huge mule deer, like 250 yards. With a muzzleloader, and actually it was a little further than that, and that's not a big deal now, because people do it. But anyways, it was trying to bring the seasons back to like, hey, these are supposed to be primitive seasons, and I was a Region 1 rep for Idaho State bow hunters, and I didn't even take a side, and I had guys calling me out, calling me every name in the book, but it was just, and that was only in the discussion phase. There was nothing that was proposed. I guess where I would waffle, I would just throw out two things. I mean, would you be opposed if they opened up an area that hasn't historically had an archery season in it, and they open the season up, and maybe it takes 2% of the state's hunters, like myself, maybe instead of going to this unit, I'm going to go to that unit. And, offering tags, stickbow seasons in areas that have never historically had a tag. I mean, is that a problem? The other side of the coin is you're going to get people breaking away, stickbow guys breaking away, when, like I talked about earlier, the department says, hey, we got to start dialing back because our success rates are too high. That's when the fracture is really going to begin. Did I answer any of that?
But I see what you're saying. I have a hard time with that. And one of the things, I understand what you're saying. Not a hard time with you, personally, and how you feel about it. I have a hard time with saying we get in trouble when people start becoming better hunters because they're harvesting animals. But I feel like that should be every hunter's goal, and it is to become a better hunter. So, I don't know that the answer is limiting them. I guess that's how all these states work. Just like Kansas, it was almost always a guaranteed tag there. And now it's like a 50% chance you're going to draw it because there's so many hunters putting in for it. And so it sucks, but that's how they manage their herd. Only so many people are getting to go hunt because they're killing that many animals every year, So I don't know. It does suck. I do see what you're saying, and I once again don't have a good answer.
Well, on some of this, and I've gotten bashed for this because Colorado's very good to out-of-state hunters, but dealing with some of the mobs, and this is archery rifles even worse. I've brought it up. Do you want to go hunting or do you want to have a really good hunt? If you want to go hunting every year, that's one thing. But if you want to really have a really good hunt every other year, I think you would probably, think about it. Do you want to go 10 years and see the ass of a few elk, or do you want to hunt every third year and kill a good bull? And I'm like, to me, starting to limit or putting in a draw statewide and not having so many, it's unlimited over-the-counter tags, it doesn't have shit to do with traditional or compound archery. It just has to do with the number of hunters coming into the state, whatever they are. Something's going to happen, like we, the limiting whether, if there's talk about proficiency test earlier, but they're just going to cut tags down, make it all draw. That's coming just because for hunting numbers being down, it's got to be whitetail hunters, because you can't throw a hippie in Boulder without hitting a Subaru, right? Well, you can't throw a rock without hitting a Texas or Oklahoma plate in Colorado or some state during elk season. There'll be 40 vehicles in a trailhead. 35 of them are out-of-state hunters on over-the-counter tags. I mean, and it's bad. It's hard to get away from it.
The trailhead we were hunting out of, it looked like a Born and Raised commercial whenever we pulled up to it. It was ridiculous. We never saw him again after we got about 2 miles from the truck, though.
That's normally the way it works.
You know, I'm going to back up for 1 minute, Aaron, and just say you use the analogy. If you were picked last at Foursquare, you use that all the time. I don't know if you're aware of that. This year, somebody's going to send a kill picture to you and say, look, I did it, and I was picked last at Foursquare.
Well, you know how it is in school, right? Like, there's always that dude that you feel bad for, but you know it's coming when you pick teams. And he's picked last. And you know what? I'm not going to say that because I will get hate mail. There's a profession he may choose later on to get back at everyone. What that profession may be, probably not. Probably gonna have to do with a badge. But that happens. I mean, there's certain people good at certain, things, and I brought it up in seminars before. And if you don't have good hand-eye coordination and things like that, traditional archery may not be for you. I mean, it takes a skill set to be able to hit what you're aiming at, and a compound, bow might be better. And I mean, all of us have seen it, but how many times have you seen guys with a compound with target panic so bad that they literally, if you said, hey, don't squeeze the trigger, they just can't do it and winging arrows all over. It's not just Stickbow guys is what I'm saying. There's problems all over as far as that goes, which is why that proficiency test keeps popping up in my mind. But
right, yeah, and this is the first I've ever heard that there was people were too good with a bow, like we were killing too much stuff. Because everywhere I go, I'm like, holy crap, these guys need work.
Well, fill in the blank. I mean, there is a reason why the harvest rates are higher in Idaho for archery, and it has been that way for several years. And the 10-year elk plan, I don't know if you guys remember when that was published. Gosh, 4 years ago. It stated Idaho's 10-year elk plan stated that if technology continued to increase, now don't jump me. This is what it said. If technology continues to increase and affect the harvest rates of archery seasons, we're going to have to look at limiting opportunity.
Well, Idaho also has a tag that's good for every animal in the entire state, pretty much. You buy a freaking deer tag and you can shoot a cougar, a mule deer, a whitetail. Pretty much everything. I mean, I think that has a lot to do with why people are so successful in Idaho, because you buy one tag and you can shoot everything. At least where I was at.
So does that mean you could put an elk tag on a wolf, hypothetically?
Not an elk. My elk tag I had to buy different, but I bought a deer tag and it was good for bear, cougar,
anything lesser.
mule deer.
Anything lesser. So you couldn't have put it on an elk.
No, not.
But that's elk. Just that's a unique. I mean, that's not impacting success rates. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm talking specifically about elk. Right, so I'm not talking all species. Okay. Yeah.
Gotcha.
No, I'm talking.
Well, that wouldn't impact elk, but it would impact success rates on all the other animals, because you wouldn't be just hunting one specific. You'd just be hunting whatever came by.
Yeah, they don't track. I don't even think they track bear. I could be wrong there as far as.
Does that success ratio have something to do with the fact you can shoot two of them in a season?
No. This was before that even started, and that's not going to change, because how's that going to change it?
Well, if you only got a gun hunter can only shoot one and a bow hunter can only shoot two, or it can shoot two, there's obviously going to be more taken.
No, the gun hunter could shoot two at that time too. It was if he bought two non-resident tags. You mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
No, that's not gonna.
But I mean, it would make a huge difference if they only allowed one per hunter. right?
They do. It was Idaho has never sold more than, and I'll butch the number up, but it's right around 12,000. 12,000 non-resident tags. Just talking elk. It's been that way for 20 years. So this success rate number is based on a set number of tags for
Gotcha.
a long time.
First come, first serve type.
Yeah, and what was happening is when they weren't selling, they're selling now. When they weren't selling out, then a resident could buy a non-resident tag at that non-resident price.
Gotcha.
I'll play devil's advocate here. And what would you say the average effective range of a compound shooter has increased over the last 15 years? Would you say it's 20 yards, 15 to 20 yards?
So. I'd say it went from 40 to probably 60. Most guys,
I'd say 40 to 55 probably.
Yeah.
Well,
pushing 60. Most everybody's got a 60-yard pin on their bow when that wasn't the case 20 years ago.
Right. So, and again, I'm just throwing another tangent into this, but how much of that success rate going up has to do with the extra 15 or 20 yards as opposed to people having more information about elk, more information that's easily accessible, like Chris Rowe or some of the other things that are out there, e-scouting. I think there's a lot more affecting. Yes, there's a lot more affecting these things than just in other words, I think the extra 15 or 20 yards isn't that big of a difference. You still have to be a pretty damn good hunter to get within 60 yards of an elk. When most people, even with rifle tags, are going to eat their tag.
I agree. I think it's a little bit of everything. And I think hunters now are just more precision focused. Like they're more serious, and I don't know what's caused that, but I mean, I don't even know how to explain that the right way. But, back 20 years ago, when I first started hunting, like with my dad, it was way more laid back. It was just, camo wasn't a big deal. Scent control wasn't a big deal. There was no information on how to get any of this stuff done.
Social.
And now it's endless. Like, and there's, everybody is watching the which way the wind's blowing, which wasn't a thing 20 years ago. Not for me anyways, that I learned with my dad about hunting the wind, and I just feel like, so much has changed. I just think hunters in general have more information on how to be more efficient. Even if they aren't great shots, they get more opportunities because of the information.
Yeah, and we touched on this a minute ago, and I don't think we were recording because Rob had issues. So, Rob, you didn't hear this, but I asked Levi earlier what his average group was with broadheads out of his hunting bow at like 80 yards. And Levi, you said what, 6 inches? No wind?
Yeah, 5-6 inches. I mean, I feel comfortable
but
saying
that's
that.
consistent, like 100% consistent. This is the
as long
best.
as my testicles aren't on the line, it's hard to get the podcast.
No, so this is the best compound shooter in the world saying this. And like I said earlier, and again, I don't think we were recording, is I can think of 20 or 30 guys on Instagram right now who are just Joe Blow bow hunters who post groups at 80 yards and 100 yards like that all the time. And I think that the disconnect there is just because you see somebody doing it on social media doesn't mean that that's the norm. And I think that a lot of traditional guys who poo-poo on the long-range compound thing think that because they see people post their best groups on their best day on social media that everybody with a compound is somehow capable of that. And they don't realize the amount of time and work and tuning and those things that goes into that. And I just wanted to retouch back on that because I think we missed it earlier, and I think Rob missed it.
I hope the audio didn't get screwed up because this is a great conversation. It's been really good now. So when you say broadheads, I'm curious, are you talking expandables or fixed blades?
No, I'm an expandable guy, 100%. Just especially long range shooting stuff like that. So
This could be an endless podcast.
But that's not
Oh,
because
yeah.
he's not capable of tuning a fixed blade, Rob. I know where you're going.
No, look, I hunted Oregon and Idaho. I know how to shoot fixed blades.
This could be endless, man.
Yeah. I just choose not to because it's a lot of work. Wow, I sound lazy right there, didn't I? I sound like a crossbow shooter.
We're actually joking. This is a mainstream bow hunting podcast. This has nothing to do with stick bows. This is like candid camera, bro.
Perfect.
That's funny. Man, what are we missing before I move on here? Are we missing anything, Aaron, Blake? You guys got anything you want to?
I don't think so, man.
No.
Aaron, you there?
I'm here. I was man, there were so many different things I'm glad I didn't say in the last 45-minute conversation, because I was thinking of all the emails I'd be answering in the next 72 hours. But I guess one thing, so Levi, so 12 years, whatever, you were shooter of the year. 12 years ago, how much better were shooters now compared to 12 years ago in your line of work, professional archery?
Quite a bit. and not so much, I would say, in general, their ability, but more in how well they are under pressure, how well they handle the moment. In my opinion, is what has changed. Used to, there were only a couple guys that could handle that moment, and that's when I won more than, when I had the years where I won by 20 points and nobody was close, and it was not because I just ran away from them all weekend. It was because of when it came down to that moment, they went away. And I just feel like now those guys have just really figured out how to shoot under that kind of pressure really, really well. Now, granted, they're better, equipment's better, but not to the point where it's like 20 points better. Like, you look at our scores 20 years or 10 years ago, they're the same, if not better, than they are now. Now, courses have gotten harder and stuff like that. Rings have gotten smaller, but overall ability better, but not by leaps and bounds. It's just people's ability to perform under pressure has gotten better immensely, in my opinion.
Well, I just wrote an article about this, and I'm kind of curious. I said a 3% increase in shooter ability maybe in the last decade or two, and maybe a 5 to 10% increase in technology of bows in the last. And I broke down, like, basically what Matthews did, some of the things they were talking about. So if you break that down, and the people that can afford it and everything else, it's not really changing the harvest ratio in a lot of states unless the crossbow comes into play or numbers. A lot of it's the drive of a hunter and not the technology in some ways. In my opinion, hunters now are more athletic. They watch their diet more. They have, at the push of a button, can learn just about anything. They got 4 million people on Instagram teaching them how to call elk. You got Base Map, Onyx, all this stuff. I would say, and then you've got people. Well, you got a Levi Morgan, you got Cam Haynes. You pick it. You can look up to so many more people now because it's not once a month in a magazine. It's every day on social media to keep them driven. I would say that's increasing more than anything as far as harvest ratio. And you guys may think I'm full of shit, but I think that's
no, I agree with you too. And on top of that, social media on a whole nother realm is everybody now puts their entire life on social media. So they know they're going to be looked at, like they go hunting, and what they're wearing, what gear they have, everybody sees everything they have. And so it's driving this, I guess, look. There's this look nowadays of that bow hunter, and they're just geared up from head to toe. They're all trying to fit, and that's all thanks to social media. I mean, before social media, nobody cared because nobody else was seeing what you're doing. you're just out hunting. Now everybody sees every move you make out there. And so, and on top of what you're saying, the information is so accessible.
Rob, Blake, how do you feel about that?
No, I agree. That's kind of what I was getting at a minute ago is I think there's a lot bigger fish to fry than the compound bow, because I think there's a lot of factors other than the compound bow that have attributed to higher success rates. The fact that you can get on Google Earth and find a herd of elk above tree line is insane to me. But like like we said a minute ago, the average effective range of a compound shooter has gone up maybe 15 yards in the last 15 years or 20 years. And that's not just going to magically will people into the wheelhouse to kill stuff. There's a lot of other factors there.
Well, that Blake touched on it, and then Aaron, you really hammered it. But that was the out I was not going to give you guys, because that has been brought up into discussions, and I wasn't gonna add that. So kudos to you guys for picking that up.
Well, you think about it. Well, okay, Blake, what did you message me when you had a couple issues with the Stickbow?
Oh, I was.
I need a hug. Was that what it was?
No, it was. I was
frustrated.
missing stuff. I was about ready to break that thing in half, and that's when I went and bought a compound and got my confidence back. But it was Aaron who messaged me and said basically, rub some dirt on it, get over it. But
I think I actually said rub some dirt in your crotch and man up. That might have been my exact words.
Yeah.
You didn't have that though 15 years ago, 20 years ago. You didn't have, I mean, I would have never met any of you guys. Hardly. Levi used to read about you in 3D Times and shit, but hell, now Levi sends me goofy ass memes. We make fun of each other online. It is a different world than it used to be. And you think about it, even if it's pride, I see some dude I don't like that killed something. I'm like, oh, I ain't going out like that. No way. Yeah. I got to get in it. As weird as it is, I think that's a big factor. I don't think people realize it as much. You don't get the cool points if you don't shoot anything, where before it didn't matter.
Right, like you last year, like you went 2 weeks without killing something, and I started messaging you like, "Are you sick?" or like, what happened to you? Because your whole world is in front of everybody now. Used to, I'd have never known that you had just sucked for 2 weeks at hunting. I wouldn't have known that.
Dude, and I had so many people are like, "Hey, what's going on?" I'm like, "What do you mean what happened? It's hunting. Traditional archery happened. Hunting happened. Sometimes I might not shoot something for a week in that span between September and February. But now everyone is like, oh, so Levi, you get it a bunch. He's getting old. He's not what he's used to be. Of course, this year you're beating the brakes off of everybody, which I thought was awesome. But if there's people out there can find something to poke at you, they're gonna find it. And social media, I mean, that opened up a door that'll never be closed as far as peeking into people's lives.
Yeah.
Well, it would close if people would stop doing it. There's certainly some good
my
stuff
aunt will throw balls and become my uncle too. That ain't happening.
There's some good things. There is some good things about social media. I can't believe that anybody can say that hunter numbers are continuing to decrease just by the amount of people you see. The one thing about social media that I think is unfortunate is guys and gals will look at the success that some people have, and again, talking about you, Levi, or you, Aaron, and they're comparing, their success to you guys. And I mean, you guys have poured your lives into what you do. And I think that sometimes can be detrimental and can lead to some bad decisions on people's behalfs when they're out there and they think they have to achieve what you guys achieve, and maybe take maybe step over the line a few times.
I think it can be detrimental, but at the same time, and I've said this before, I guess it depends from person to person. It can also be extremely beneficial, just from, and I've said this before, just from watching Aaron shoot and his ability with the stick bow is what got me into it in the first place. And if you're a driven person and a goal-oriented person, I think it could be a great thing to watch Levi or Aaron or whatever. But if at the same time, that shouldn't be your measuring stick. You should come up with your own. I mean, if you're putting the time into it and getting out of it what you want to get out of it, I think there's a couple different ways you can look at that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think it's all just like you said, the type of person you are. I mean, like in how you look at this, how you look at it. Because when I was a kid, hunting, I watched the Drury brothers, I watched Dan Fitzgerald, Roger Ragland, and that's all I did. And I didn't look at it and compare it to what I was doing, because I grew up in Carolinas, and you would go 2 weeks and not see a deer. We were hunting public ground in Carolinas, and I just sit in my stands, I remember, and just dream about watching those big bucks on their shows, and just dream about that happening to me one day, and knowing the chances of that happening where I was at were slim. I mean, you just got to be a realist on where you're hunting and what you're doing and what your goals are. And at the same time, I was shooting the tournament trail, watching Randy Ulmer and Jeff Hopkins just kill it. And they were at the top of their game. And I was a 10-year-old kid, winning the youth class, watching these guys and thinking, just dreaming of one day be standing out there, doing what they're doing. And so I think it's on how you look at it. It wasn't I was comparing it like I suck because I'm not out there doing that, or I'm not shooting $5 over 150 in 1 year like Roger Ragland. I looked at it as my whole life, like one day I want to do that. One day I want to be there. One day I'm going to have a buck like that walk by me. You can't look at it and go, well, frick, Levi's just shot a 180-inch deer. I must suck. I got to go find a 180-inch deer, and I'll do whatever it takes and shoot it on somebody else's property with no tag or whatever. Because some people have that mentality. I mean, it's just, I think, and it's all in how each individual looks at it. I've never looked at anything like that with compare it to, what I'm doing now. I just figure out a way, I put the steps that are necessary to get there, in order, and start trying to knock them out. But I've been that way since I was a little kid. So I don't know. I think you're right. I think I hear it all the time at outfitters, and people that run outfit businesses hate TV and social media because it gives a false sense of success, and everybody comes expecting to kill, a 160-inch deer the first sit, because in TV you only show the high points. You don't show the 2 weeks it took setting up on a deer and hunting him and seeing him 3 times and getting busted, and or the years of history with that deer. You have to pack it in 22 minutes. And so I think that has had a negative effect some on people's expectations, because what they see is only the high points. Even with social media, you see the picture of Aaron with that antelope, and Aaron's different because he'll tell the whole story. But some guys just, post a success picture. I'm bad for it too. Like, I'll hunt for 10 days and then post a picture and say, got it done, and then on to the next. And so they see that and they're like, oh, I must be nice. I must suck because I've been out here grinding for 3 weeks and I ain't had an opportunity yet. So I see it definitely gives a false sense of, success.
False sense of success. Let me tell you, Jeff Lander, the first time I went to Alberta, and there's a lot of deer there, but I was hunting for 4 days. Like, okay, I suck. Like, these deer are much smarter than I had anticipated. I finally I shot a good deer, and he's like, well, you're the third one. And I'm like, third one what? He said, you're the third one to shoot one with a recurve in 21 years. And I was like, what? I was like, you didn't have to take that picture when I come up here. And he's like, well, the guys get a lot of shots. And I was like, Jesus. But in my mind, I saw his page and lots of big deer, and it was just much more difficult. And that's why I try to tell people come out west like Primos. It is not like Primos hunting, elk hunting, unless you have paid. Levi, what's that tag where they're at? Like 25 grand?
Yeah, they're hunting a lot the Hill Ranch, and then the one place they hunt that borders the Hill Ranch is they don't pay for it. It's not an outfitter; it's just a guy that has some ground there. But it'd be worth that if he charged for it. I mean, it's primo stuff.
But yeah, you can't expect to come out west and get that, because it's just not. I mean, I tell people shoot the first thing that walks in front of you. When they come out west, elk hunting the first time.
And I think we do a pretty good job. I mean, Aaron, you and I have done these quite often. I think we do a pretty good job of hammering that, come out with some realistic expectations. What, you see on social media, you don't know the backstory. What's it? They say 10% of hunters, kill 90% of the game. There's people that spend a lot of time researching it, and, they live right here. So, yeah, come out here, have fun, hunt hard, but keep your expectations realistic, and you won't be disappointed if you do that.
Right.
Or as disappointed. Hey, man, this has been awesome. I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, no problem. I've had fun. I don't know that I had a lot of answers, but I tried to keep my emotions out of it, and so yeah.
I think one time you got a little emotional. That was like a victory. Got him.
Oh yeah, I know. And then you asked a question, and I was like, man, I don't even know that there is a good answer to that.
I think it's been a lot of good discussion, man. And one thing that Rob and I have talked about a lot in the last 3 weeks is trying to find the common ground between trad guys and compound guys. And me having done both of it and seeing both ends of the spectrum, and trying to have guys like you on, and trying to have some of the old timers, the trad guys, trying to really understand everybody's point of view on everything. And I think some of the conversation we had here this evening was really cool, most stuff.
It's about bridging the gap.
Yeah, for sure. And I will tell you guys something. I'm going to try to hunt with a trad bow. I want to kill something with a trad bow. So Aaron sent me a message the other day talking about it. So I'm going to try it. I've never done it. I'm going to try it.
You might be hooked.
I might be over there making fun of compound shooters in a couple weeks.
You heard it first here on the Stickbow Chronicles.
Yeah.
One thing I've done in the past, I think we're going to do one with, I think we're going to interview somebody here in a couple of days, just kind of, just walking through somebody's mindset, a guy like you, especially, right? Your whole life is compounds, and then, why do you take the leap, and how is it? Is it what you expected? I think it's fun to, travel down that road, but I'd be super interested to hear how it goes.
I'm probably going to suck at it at first, but I will kill something with it before it's over with.
I bet it won't take you long to get the hang of it.
It's funny, as I got my notes here, and I'm thinking, usually when we have a guest on, we're like, okay, so where can people find you? And here you are. I'm thinking, man, maybe Levi doesn't want any of my audience finding him.
No, I've never, had a bad thing to say about traditional in general. I think it's great. I totally get it. I really do. I do. I get it. I see how it would be super fun. I've never done it just because my life literally revolves around a compound. And so, but I do get it. My problems have always occurred in just arguments, defending myself, and then I get a little heated, just like anybody. So yeah. But I mean, no, I do get it, and I swore I'd never do it, but then Aaron talked me into it and made me start thinking about it, and so I've actually been sending text messages, and may or may not have one on the way, a recurve, may or may not, but
wow.
I don't know how to use it, so I gotta yeah.
Oh geez,
I'm looking forward to hearing about it, man. We'd like to circle back with you and see how it goes.
You don't hear about it, I suck so bad that it didn't work out. So.
Oh, that's funny.
Again, I think personally from where I sit, and it's always been my mindset that I'm a stickbow guy. I do it because I love it. It is a community. Sometimes it can be a little rough. the dynamics have changed dramatically, mostly because of the knucklehead down in the lower right-hand corner there, bringing so many people on board. But I think it's paramount that moving forward that we can have our differences, but in the larger picture, we do need to find common ground and at times speak with a united voice, because we're not looked favorably in the society's eyes often. So I think we all ought to have each other's back.
Bow hunters' lives matter.
I agree with that.
We need a shirt.
I agree with that. I can get behind that.
Oh,
Wow.
man.
Levi, are you going to try the stick out in Mississippi?
Oh man, I don't know. That's a pretty money spot. Maybe.
What about once you shoot a buck?
Yeah, definitely. After that, I gotta see how good I get with it first. Depends on where I'm gonna take it.
No, wait a minute.
You'll be cussing me like crazy. 170-inch whitetail came by and I had this stupid stick in my hand. You son of a bitch.
You'll see a Stickbow. I promise you, there'll be a video of me breaking it over my knee if that happens.
No, there'll be a video of you hanging it back on the hook and reaching over your left shoulder and grabbing your wheelbow.
Exactly.
So, Aaron, you got to be honest with him. You can't paint a rosy picture. Even when you do pick up the Stickbow, just understand that half the or third of the Stickbow crowd is going to be like, yeah, but you got a springy rest on that. That's not traditional.
Yeah, Levi, I tell you what'll probably happen. What did with me was, one, I mean, you got to change your tactics a little, but my heart rate definitely started. I mean, my heart rate always goes up some, but you'd be amazed when you got that piece of wood in your hand when you see a doe come in. You'd think the first time it's a 165-inch whitetail coming in, it's a freaking doe, because the weapon you have is definitely, you're talking like a par 4 or 5 at where you used to be at for distance. Now literally you're like a par 4 or 5. So it's pretty cool. I'll be interested to see, if you get good enough where you're comfortable with it. If your heart rate did like what mine did before, I'd shoot stuff and I'd get excited, but nothing like when I got a Stickbow in my hand. It got super addictive.
Yeah, I can imagine so, because when I see my heart rate start going up is when my confidence level is not great. Like in tournaments, if I'm like get real nervous, it's because I'm not confident. So I can probably go ahead and tell you my heart rate's going to be through the roof.
It's wild, man. The first day I had one, I missed a 160-inch buck right over his back. So,
no, I won't laugh long.
Oh, come on, man! You gotta laugh.
I got over it.
That's funny.
You got anything else?
Wow, listen to that. Like a freaking old married couple.
You guys have a good night.
All right, take it easy.
Yeah.
See
See
ya.
you guys later.